Oh, sorry. I'm looking over here and it tells me I'm live over there, and I didn't even realize it was. So I'm just kind of sitting here, zoning out. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Satsang. Welcome to your weekly dose of self-inquiry and time with yourself. That's what I want this to be, a time dedicated to you. I'm really just kind of a facilitator of the process, right? But you're the one who does the process. Yeah. It's a thing about this whole approach to spirituality. You're the only one that can do it, and it is paradoxical. There's no denying it. It is paradoxical. You're the one that's doing it, and yet you're not. It's all happening as a matter of grace. It's kind of, you have to be willing to surrender to the process. And even though it feels like you're doing something, you're making the inquiry, you're examining, you're questioning your assumptions, all of that kind of stuff. On a deeper level, all of that is being prompted and empowered by something greater than the human being. It's not that it's not happening. It's just that you're not actually the one doing it. Inquiry is happening, of course. The questioning of assumption is happening. Our deep desire to realize our true nature is happening. Right? But what appears on the surface as you doing something is actually the illusion. It's being done. It is just happening, and it is inevitable. And there's nothing in the universe that can stop your awakening. You can't stop what is meant to happen, and to wake up is your destiny. It's the destiny of all humankind. That's what it means to be born a human, is to have access to the kind of self-awareness, the capacity to take in our own being as consciousness from a perspective that is outside of the normal realm of life, the normal realm of just, our natural instincts and desires and wants and associations and conditions, and to find this place that is capable of actually standing apart from it and looking at it, and becoming curious simply about that phenomena, which, as far as we can tell, no other critter on the planet can do. Can actually become aware of being aware. Become aware of all of the instincts and conditioning and the instinctual part of nature. And every other critter, they are just one with it. They're just going through it. They are just a part of life. We seem to be the only ones that can stand aloof and look at it and wonder about it. And that capacity is the doorway back into that which is aware of all of it, to go past the individual sense of identity into the singularity, into the singular, the oneness that recognizes that all forms of life are myself. So I'm not going to go on too much here in the beginning. I'm going to take a sip of my tea because I noticed there are actually already questions queuing up, and I do have another event I have to attend, an interview after this. So I do have to bring it to a close more promptly. I can't be as over as, or can't make an overrun like it normally does. So I'm just going to head right over here to the queue and see what people have to say. So welcome everybody to Satsang, and welcome all my friends in the Enlightened World Network. As always, I'm so glad to see you here. And so let's see. Hello from Roberto. Hello, Roberto. Hard to believe the situation in the world would be like it is 1 year after COVID. Congrats, everyone around the world. We made it. Yes, it's very true. It's been quite extraordinary, and quite a quite a stress and strain on so many people. Strain on our systems. Actually, reveals the weakness of much of what we have taken for granted, which is a good thing. There's a shift in the attitude now that the vaccine is out there. I don't know how you actually feel about the vaccine. I know a lot of people are very suspicious of it. Other people are fans of it. And there are people who condemn both sides quite critically. I myself am not really sure. I don't trust the system in general, but I know the actual scientists themselves who work on these things are very sincere. So we have the system, which is corrupt, but we have the individuals who are not, which makes for a very, very complex and different and difficult environment for which I understand anything. But nonetheless, the idea of it, being injected into the general consciousness, has had quite an effect on people. I know the CDC just in the United States, I think it was yesterday or the day before, released new guidelines that if you'd been vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask anymore. Of course, how do you know whether somebody has or not? They take off their mask. How do you know whether they have been or not? We don't, and fortunately, there's not a big effort to try to create a global database to where your papers, to certify whether you have or not. So, but nonetheless, it does reflect a shift. I've just noticed personally, people are less afraid. There's more of a sense of normalcy. So we'll see where it goes. So, but we all need to actually take stock that it's been a very trying time for all of us individually. There's nothing harder on human beings than being separated from who we love, than being cut off from our natural human contact. To have this kind of distance, social distancing and the masks and stuff, it makes for, it's not natural to us. Simple as that. It may have been necessary, but it certainly is not unnatural for us. And to see us returning to some kind of state where it might feel a little more human, is definitely going to have a positive effect. So kudos to everybody for, and I hope things get to a point where you feel a new normal. If all of these events, these dramatic events that affect humanity, especially humanity as a whole, which I think is the first time this has ever happened, if they go by without us actually taking the time to reassess where we are as a species, and the like, and see if we really want to go back to that normal or create a new one, then this will have been worth it. If we don't, we just want to go back to the way things were, which many people do, just exactly back to the way they were doing things before, and we haven't learned anything, which means something else is going to come along, because there's much we have to see. So, congratulations to you too, Roberto, my dear friend. Rosario from Spain, hello, sir. Sabugo, which is my friend Tony. Hello, dear master, and everyone here. Is being knowingly the knowingness that I am the same or similar as resting in the sense I am? In other words, attending fully to the ultimate experience, but without location and form. Or is it better to drop any concept or idea of what I am and instead experience everything I am not? Sorry for the long question. Smile, many thanks. Well, knowing the I am and resting as the I am would have to be one and the same. But if it's become conceptual, right? It's become an idea, holding an idea of what I am, rather than the direct experience of the I am, then that's something you're going to have to withdraw from. Because it's the I am, the sense of being is not a thought. Thought always comes later. Without you there first, there can be no thought about you, right? So what's there prior to the thought? Now, the best way I can describe it is it's simply this feeling, right? Do you know that you are? Right? I guess the answer would have to be yes. Everybody here knows they are. Do you know that you exist? Right? Yes, I know that I exist. Now, without putting any concept to it, without drawing any picture in your mind of what you are, just feeling the sense of your own existence, the intuitive, direct, and effortless knowing of it, okay, that sense is the I am. That's the actual I am. Now, notice you don't need to give it a name, I am. You could call it Bob, or you could call it, anything. The name of it, Allah or Yahweh or Zeus, right? Or Shiva being, or whatever you want to call it, is totally irrelevant, right? It's the actual sense itself. Now, this is where it becomes a bit of a meditation, because putting your attention just on the sense of it, you'll find the mind constantly trying to describe it. Because when you're just in the sense of it, the mind is completely unnecessary. You don't need it to feel. You don't need the mind to just feel the sensation in your body. Okay? But the habit is, no matter whatever we experience, however subtle, the mind wants to label it and contrast it and compare it to things it remembered before and the like. And that's just the nature of the mind. Recognizing that, you can bring your attention to that which is there prior to mind. Because mind cannot be there without you there first. So you are prior to all thinking. And so you bring your attention back simply to that, the sense of being, which is prior to even the concept I am. Matter of fact, even the idea that it's I am comes later. It doesn't announce itself as I am. It's just presence. It's just the sense of existing. And it's very, very subtle. And to knowingly keep your attention there is to abide in it. You're bringing the sense of I into that place which is the source of the I. The source of the I thought or I notion is the actual sense of being prior to I. Prior to even something that would say, I know this. You can see there's still a very subtle duality there. So you're just staying with that sense of being. And everyone has it. It's not a big deal. It's not like it's, a big, this big dramatic thing. There are no angels singing there or bright lights, right? It's just this very quiet, effortless thing that's always there. Because if it wasn't always there, you wouldn't be here. Right? And it's been there. This thing, your entire life, everything you've ever known and experienced has been experienced by this. That is by you. Nisargadatta says, I am that by which I know I am. Now, that knowingness, is a very subtle duality there, which is still trying to find something that is knowing, something that is known. Because the mind cannot conceive the idea, because you can't, because all ideas are dualistic, of the knowingness being the self. It is not known by something else, nor is it something that is knowing. The knowing is the being. I don't need anything else other than to know that I am. And knowing that I am and being I am are one and the same. That the duality of it collapses as you simply abide there as myself. This is myself. And there is no way I can know myself as one thing knowing another, because I cannot step outside myself and look at myself as an object. So I can only know myself as myself. Consciousness alone recognizes consciousness. So it is consciousness knowing itself, and there is no duality there. And that is that intuitive, inherent sense, I am, that we call I am, but it's prior even to I am. It's prior to everything. It's the absolute, right? It is the ground, the starting point. There's nothing beyond this. There can't be anything beyond your existence, because anything beyond that would be your non-existence, in which case knowing would not be. Wonderful to start off with such a deep and subtle question. Thanks. Thank you, Tony. That's fantastic. Tell me though if that covers it for you, and anybody else who wants to kind of pick up on that, because it's very, very subtle, but it is kind of the place we all really need to get to. That's how what it means to rest as awareness, or to sink into the heart, as Ramana Maharshi would put it. Also, go back the way you came. Let the I reconnect, just kind of sink into the source of I. And it is the source of I, because before even the sense I can emerge, you must first be. So pure being is an ineffable, indetectable, unknowable from our traditional sense of subject-object knowing. It is knowing itself. Anyway, I'll leave that for now. Robbie in Romania, hello to you, sir. Roberto, strangely enough, I don't have any questions today, GP. I must be on the right path. You are on the right path. You couldn't be off it, my friend. That's so sweet. There's David and Elaine in Southeast England. There's Jay. Hello to you, sir. Hello, John in Ireland. Ursula in Madeira Island. Boy, it popped a hit on me already. Look at that. There is, there's Susanna in Gozo. There's Crispin. Hello, everybody. Sorry if I bother you again with a question about health. I just don't get it. Can the body produce fearful feelings, which in turn lead to physical weakness? Or is it always the mind that produces fear first, which can then lead to physical symptoms? Which one comes first? Does that even matter? Well, I am not a doctor, as I always pronounce before I'm going to make a statement about the relationship between mind, body, and illness and the like. From my experience over many, many years, all physical illness is a result of the state of mind, the state of being, the state of emotions, the state of consciousness, right, in which a person lives. Now, I could take that to a very metaphysical place, but instead I'm going to direct you to look up some of the work on YouTube from Gabor Mate. Now, he can speak with an authority that I can't. Gabor, G-A-B-O-R-M-A-T-E. He's a medical doctor. He's an MD. Was in family practice for many years. Then he spent many years working with addicts, heroin addicts, at just the most horrible part of Vancouver. And the conclusions he drew were that all physical illness, all of them, result from childhood trauma. That the traumatic happenings of a child creates the energetic pattern which will lead to illness. He points out that in medical school, still to this day, when he went to medical school many years ago, but still to this day, there is not one single class or lecture given about trauma, let alone a whole curriculum or a whole subject. Not one. And yet he says, if you look at the evidence, it shows statistically, people with severe childhood traumas have a 50% more likely possibility of getting cancer and other kinds of illnesses. So the evidence is absolutely overwhelming and clear. It's ignored simply because of the prejudices of medical science, which he calls the ideology, that just ignores that stuff because of just the assumption that it is either environmental in a physical environment, like a virus or toxins or something like that, or it's genetic. But completely ruling out the whole emotional side of it. So I can point to people who have authority in this field to say that the cause of illness is not so much it is not hard to understand. Right? And what is a trauma? A trauma is very simply when we become disconnected from our souls. You've heard me explain this before, but I'll explain it again because this is where it all arises from. Right? When you're a child, you are purely self-expressive, right? You are just being yourself. But now there are two powerful needs in every child. There's our desire and our need for safety, right? To survive. And of course, as a child, you are 100% dependent upon your parents. Now, I think psychologically or sociologically, they refer this as attachment, the bonding, right? There must be a bonding between parent and child or the child dies. It's that simple. If that's broken in some way, they'll either die or become extremely distorted, right? Traumatized to the point of becoming dysfunctional, right? So every child is attached. Every child bonds to their parents, right? And at the same time, we have this other powerful drive, which is for self-expression, for our own freedom, for individuality, or our authenticity, to be authentically yourself. Now, what happens is the expression of our authentic self, right, which is happening all the time in a child, is not acceptable to the tribe and therefore threatens the primary bonding, that primary attachment that must be there. And the end result then is the child has to choose, be me or die. Not a very good choice to have to make. And what do you think we do? Well, we all made the same choice. I'm going to not be me and I'm going to live. If you hadn't made that choice, you wouldn't be sitting here listening to me right now. That is the trauma that disconnects you from yourself. That's all there is to it. That is the sum total of a trauma. It's not the circumstances. It's not the events. It's whether or not it disconnects you from your capacity to be yourself. And when that happens, your energy all goes towards keeping yourself under wraps because you can't get rid of you. It's all still there, but it's just not, you can't let it come out. And then to create a false personality to function with the environment, to get from the environment what it needs. So there's this forever, this conflict between being myself and conforming to the tribe. And this is the essential trauma. Out of that comes the warping of the system that leads to all of the illnesses that we have. You don't see this in creatures in the wild because they don't have any conflict with it. They're never in conflict. Their natural behavior is never in conflict with their parents, even though they have the same bonding. I mean, horses, monkeys, birds, right? Anything above reptiles absolutely must have this bonding. I mean, if you're a turtle, you lay your eggs, you walk away, you never see your kids, right? And that's the way they've evolved. But if you're a bird or a mammal, you do. There's this dependency there. And so the higher forms it gets, up to mammals all the way up to human, the more individuality begins to appear. But it's the only place that individuality is an actual threat to your existence is in human beings. Every place else is just accepted. This is who you are. You're accepted. Individuality, all of it. The monkeys don't kick you out because you're different, right? It's just that's what it is. But human beings, it is. This is the incredible power of the gift we've been given for self-expression, and the incredible difficulty it has eradicating itself or freeing itself from the bonds of our innate need for bonding and love and being taken care of, until we can do that for ourselves. And for most people, it goes into adulthood quite crippled. And that is what gives rise to all of the illnesses, the energetic distortions. So for me, the cure to illness is very simple: reconnection with your soul. And recognizing all the places where you simply deny yourself, where you deny your needs, you deny your wants. Now, that doesn't mean just because I recognize a want, I'm always going to get what I want. That's not it. It's the mature ability to completely accept what you're feeling when you're feeling it without judgment, right? Even when it's uncomfortable, and even when it's in direct contrast or in conflict with safety. Because if you can accept both, the drive for safety and that drive for freedom, you're now at a place of consciousness where you can actually make choices, and you can begin to reprogram the system, right? That doesn't have to be so aggressive about keeping you safe. That's completely squashing all your natural energy of self-expression and self-love, really. You cannot accept yourself as long as you're being somebody you're not. You can't love yourself if you're still acting out the version of you that you had to become when you were a kid in order to survive, because it's not you, right? You're a whale in a swimming pool. You belong in the ocean, and you know it. And all of that creates all sorts of stress and internal conflict, all sorts of energy. Just think of the sheer amount of energy that it takes to suppress the truth of your being. I use the analogy of holding a beach ball underwater. You're holding a beach ball underwater. What else can you do? Not much. You scratch your nose for a second, right? But it takes so much energy, right? But we're not aware that we're holding that underwater, and we're wondering why I don't have the full energy for life. Right? And you can see that energy that could be flowing into other patterns. Another study showed that these traumas, they affect the autoimmune system. Well, of course they do. Where's the energy? It's suppressing all this material, right? Rather than doing what it needs to do. So maybe that explains it a little bit better. So the body it's not like the body's producing these fearful things. The body is in a state of self-protection. It's trying to maneuver this territory, right? It's protecting the original innocent you, the genuine you, which can't go away, from the world that doesn't accept you. And there's the energetic disconnect. That's the soul disconnect, or the soul fragmentation that doesn't allow you to be yourself. And that's what sucks off all the energy. It reduces all the systems of the body. It creates stress. It creates anxiety. So perhaps that helps you clarify it a bit more, Crispin, and give it some more authority than I have, because these are documented facts. This can be studied and looked at for those few people who have actually done it, because there is a bias, right, in all of the medical schools. It only wants to focus on the physiological aspect of it. This other part is just is for the most part ignored, and still is. They don't teach this stuff in medical schools today. Although probably over the last 5-10 years, the whole discussion of trauma and the influence of that has gotten huge. I mean, the mind-body thing has been around for a while, but it's always been regarded as, going back to Dr. John Soros, I think his name was, the mind-body connection. It's a watershed book about that. Even back in the 70s, a book called Confessions of a Medical Heretic by a fellow, I think it was Robert Mendelsohn. So this has been talked about, but it's still very much on the periphery. The strict materialists, just don't go along with this at all. But it's not just me saying this. It's not just some kind of metaphysical idea. There's some real legs to it. So I hope that helps, dear friend. Let's see. Martin. Hello, Martin. Hello, everyone. I noticed that the generous act of giving can make oneself forget the small self and the body-mind. Can it lead to enlightenment? Thank you. In and of itself, no. It certainly contributes to it, because the act of giving is by definition an unselfish act. That is not a personal sense of, you're not gaining anything from it. When it's really given without an expectation in return, it's genuinely given. That's genuine love. When it's given with expecting something in return, you've got some kind of a business deal. It's a transactional. And most of our relationships are like that. And most, to some extent, have to be, right? That's the nature of human need, each meeting each other's need. And so that feeling of giving without expecting anything in return is incredibly uplifting. Something feels really good, because in that moment, there's no ego. There's no ego in that, because the ego is always about what it can get. Now, can that lead to enlightenment? Not without inquiry, no. But it is a path. It's regarded as a path. This is the path of Seva Yoga, which is simply the path of service, and also Karma Yoga, which is the path of doing without expectations of results. And both of those are extremely, it can really develop and mature the character of somebody. But ultimately, the I that is giving, the I that is feeling the sense of the joy of giving, the I that is doing things without an attachment to the result, the I that is serving, has to be questioned. And in the non-dual inquiry, the I itself is scrutinized until it's seen to not exist. And that there isn't somebody doing something selfishly or unselfishly, that there is one self from which everything is emanating and merging with that self. That happens through the scrutinizing of the sense of I, the concept I, and that sense of identity, and dismantling that sense of identity I was talking a minute about with Crispin, that is created purely by the nervous system as a presentation to the world in order to get its needs met, which is the substance of the egoic mind. So keep doing unselfish things, because it keeps connecting you to the joy of egoless being, which will inspire you and help reinforce the inquiry and motivate it to dismantle that I, until you see that the ultimate unselfishness is there's no self. That is, there's no personal self. There is only the universal self. And that's where all of it comes together. And you see that every act of giving was actually the giving of the self. Everything was the self giving, which in its infinite nature needs nothing in return. So it is nothing but giving. Pure love, without any need for anything. There's all motivation is outward, pure heart. So thank you, Martin. Ava, now stage your master. Hello, everyone. Hello, Ava. Annette. Hi, Annette, Rockstar. Hi, GP. Is it true that children choose their parents? And how can I imagine that to happen? I don't think it is. No. I see no evidence of that. Somebody say, well, I wouldn't have chosen my parents. Well, maybe you would have, right? Because, you go back in between, it's a different place. What would I want my next life to be like? I don't think it works like that. I think it's much more on a much more subtle energetic level. The energies of which we are unaware reproduce and produce the circumstances in manifest form. And so our mission isn't to choose better parents or different parents, but to get deeply in touch with those really subtle energies, which in Sanskrit they call the vasanas. In Hinduism or Buddhism, it's called this repository consciousness. It's very, very subtle energies, right? That are impersonal. They're not formed. They're preformed, right? They're just kind of amorphous energies, but they have a certain quality that is going to give rise to a certain experience, and that experience will manifest as what you would call your inner world. A world and parents, and and shape your experience of them. Because even if your parents weren't chosen, your perception of your parents is what you're going to experience. That's going to be the dominant thing, whatever's influencing your perception of it. And your perception of it's never going to be the whole story. I have very clear perceptions of my parents and how I responded and how I reacted, but I also know quite clearly that my perception of them couldn't possibly be the whole of them. In order for me to know the whole of them, I'd have to live their lives. So all I know is the effect it had on me, my interpretation of it, my reaction to it, and the like. And that's all I know, right? So in that sense, I create my parents, that is, but not, like, I think they're going to be like this, this, and this. But I certainly don't choose them in that sense. So there's a deeper energy going on that I think on the surface, people like to say things like that because people like to get the sense that, that you're going to be you, after this body falls away, it's going to be still you. Your name's going to still be, Annette Rockstar. And you're going to be making choices about your next life, and then you're going to become the next person. But when the body falls away, so does the identity. So does Annette. GP is going to be gone. Everything I know about GP is going to be gone. His history is past. All of that is a memory that will fade very, very quickly. And there'll just be this sense of being. And in the sense of being will be the residue of whatever of these really low level energies have yet to be completely dissolved. And they will give rise to another life. That's how it works. That's the real meaning of karma, right? And so in between, there's nobody in between. There's just this sense of being that does not have an identity. It's like waking up from a dream, right? Everything you thought was you is gone. Well, who are you then? Well, you don't know. Now that unknowing can be total freedom. Oh, I'm no one in particular. Or if there's still an attachment to being someone, an attachment to form, it'll be a discomfort, even a fear that will lead to the creation of another life. Now, this is the way they put it in Buddhism and Hinduism and Vedanta. This is the experience. The Vedantic experience, the pure non-dual inquiry, reveals that even that is part of the dream. The time in between is part of the dream. And that even while all of this is happening, there will be a dimension of consciousness that is aware of it, that has nothing to do with that. That the in-between is as much a part of the dream as each one of the lives. And that's going beyond even these subtle energies to the place that is the true origin, the place where everything truly emerges from, and where it is your destiny of the I to return to. So there are no more parents. They simply cease to exist. Beyond that, I can't describe it. So thank you for that, Annette. I hope that's a satisfactory answer for you. Oh, there's Bob in Serbia. Hi, Bob. I think Snezaleya. I think that's how you say it, but I say it so badly all the time that I've just gone with Bob. Let's see. Suzanne, hi there. I heard that there are powerful and special numbers like 11, 21, 108. What is remarkable about them, and what is their purpose? Thanks. Yes, I've heard that as well. Obviously, 108 seems to have some meaning because, 108 chants, people doing mantras 108 times, 108 Hail Marys, and the like. My sense of it is everything has special power if we say it does. That in reality, nothing has any power other than the power that I give it. Right? The number 7 in many traditions, including the biblical tradition, represents completeness. Now, is there anything special about the number 7 that represents completeness? No. Right? It ends up being 7 days of the week, the 7 days of creation. There seems to be a completion of a cycle to it. So it's come to mean, right? But we made up the days of the week, right? We divided the week into 7 days. It doesn't even work through the month, right? 4 different sections of 7, and 4 has a particular meaning, and 11 has meanings, and all these 12 has meanings. So we have the 12 months of the year. We have 12,000 year cycles and 13 year and 26,000 year cycle. It's an attempt for us to try to understand the natural cycles of things. But from my experience, if I believe something has power, it has power. So where does the power really lie? In the number or in me? When I believe it is in the number will seem powerful, and I will think the number has the power, not realizing I'm the one that gave it to it, because I'm ignorant of my power. I project it on something else. Then my belief about it creates exactly the results my belief would, and I say, look, this number is powerful. You're powerful. All the power is yours. Whatever you say is true is true. Why? Because you are the truth. So whatever you designate as truth reflects your light. Ignorant of the fact that I'm the truth, I think that my reflection is actually something not my reflection. It's like a kitten looking in the mirror and thinking it sees another kitten. You look in the mirror of your life and you think you see all of these things acting on you, and in fact, they're all you. They've been empowered by you. They are a reflection of you. To come to know yourself as you truly are, all that power comes back to you, and you're no longer projecting it on anything. And now you're sitting in the truth of your being. You are the truth. You are all the power. Where else could power lie except in consciousness? It's got to be the ultimate power, because without it, nothing exists. Take away your consciousness, and nothing exists. You can imagine that, well, I wouldn't exist. I wouldn't know of anything, but it would all still be here. Really? It's purely a speculation taking place in consciousness, right? The only power, the only light, the only thing that gives life or energy to anything is consciousness. And that's you. It all belongs to you. It is not anything that has an influence on our life. It is our belief in the thing that has an influence, which we then ignorantly project on and attribute to the thing. It's like the flowers behind me. They're white and yellow and green and actually even kind of fading a little bit, right? The purple over there. No, it's a purple flower. Actually, it's not. Purple is not an attribute of a flower. The only attribute of the flower is its capacity to reflect and absorb light. Color is light. It belongs solely to light. So the flower isn't purple. Light is purple. And light is simply, part of that light is being seen, part of it isn't. But the color we see is that purple belongs to light, not to the flower. If purple belonged to the flower, you could turn off the lights and it would still be purple. Right? But it does not belong to it. It is a characteristic of light. This is the nature of everything. Nothing you see has any inherent meaning, qualities, being, or self. All the qualities you see belong to the seer. You are the light being reflected back to you, thinking you see objects, and in fact, You're only seeing your own light reflected. This is how it actually really works. So, yeah, don't worry about the numbers. Yeah, it happens. The number 1111 shows up, or 555 or 666, which no, or okay. If I say they mean something, then they mean something. If I say they don't mean anything, then they don't mean anything. Nothing has inherent meaning. All meaning lies in you, which is why inquiring into who your real nature is the absolutely the most essential and practical thing you do. The more you discover you, the more you see it reflected in the world around you. The world suddenly seems to get harmonious. It actually didn't change. You're just now seeing it through the right eyes. You no longer have filters over it. So, does that answer it for you, Suzanne? Beautiful. Thank you for that question. Oh, there's Liza from a rainy East Coast. Happy girl. Hi, G. I realize that people don't remember the truth or unbiased past. And when people argue about who is right or who remembers this, that correctly, it's all nonsense and a waste of time, because no one is right. Is that correct? No one is right. No. Oh my God. The human memory is so frail. We don't actually remember. This is the way it's seen from the neurological point of view. We don't remember specific events. It's not, people who think, oh, every event that ever happened is all tucked away in memory. No, it's not. If that was the case, we would remember things perfect, and we'd all remember the same thing. We remember fragments. And what we remember are fragments of what we perceived. And remember, any event that we are remembering, even if everybody talking about it was at the same event at the same time, would be remembering their perception of it. Their perception, of course, is colored by their views, their beliefs, how they felt that day, what they had for lunch, right? It's completely unreliable. On top of that, the bits that are remembered, the fragments, are usually just high points, emotional thing, intense, joy, happiness, love, whatever, or, misery and that sort of thing. And then what happens is, based on these fragments, the mind in the moment creates a story, a narrative, to give it some consistency in the moment. This is actually how the storyteller mind works. Everything works like that. It creates an explanation, right? So everybody will have a different explanation, because it starts with a perception that everybody had and not an actual event. It then goes processed through however amount of time, so whatever fragments happen to be there, and it's then get a story created about it in this moment that said, oh, and believe that this is what it is, and then everybody argues about it. So you're absolutely right. It's none of it is right. All of it are fragments of perceptions. And believing that this is the right way will do nothing but create conflict and even violence. I mean, if we believe in it enough and we feel threatened that they need to take this position, it'll become even worse. But look at it really carefully. Look at what actually happens when you're looking at memory. Now, I'm going to take it a step further here, and this is very kind of fun, and you can look yourself. It's quite mind-blowing, actually. What happens, right? A thought comes up. Immediately after that, there's another thought that says, that's a memory. And we believe that thought. How do we know it's even a memory? Now, nobody can step out of this moment, go back to that time, and verify it. Right? And even, of course, if you did, it would just be a perception. But put that aside. Even if you could see it perfectly, nobody can do that. So the proof that this thought is actually a memory doesn't exist. There isn't any proof other than another thought that comes later that says that was a memory. Well, is that true? There was a movie made a while ago with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they made a remake of it. called Total Recall, and it was a science fiction thing where if you couldn't afford to take the Great Vacation, everyone wanted to take a vacation to Mars at that point. If you couldn't afford to do that, you can go someplace where they would implant the memories. So you could believe you had the vacation and enjoy the memories, but you didn't actually have it. I think that kind of points to how do you know it's actually a memory? The fact is you don't. So we should never trust our memory. Every memory we have, at best, is revisionists. It was a perception at a time, and now it's a new perception created by a new story that is interpreting what it believes to be a memory. And you can all verify this. I'm sure there have been times memories have caused pain. Later on, the memory, you laugh about it. Another time you go, oh, I really understand it. And then 2 years later, you say, oh, I really understand it now. What's happening? The interpretation, all of it is shifting constantly. Where's the truth in that? Well, there isn't any. It's just a memory. It's just a thought. It's all perception. There is no truth in perception, in any perception. I've even seen seen experiments with eyewitnesses having. I have a bunch of people. They set up a scene where there was a bunch of people that thought they were getting a tour of the park, and I think it was Washington Square in New York where they were, and they set it up so that somebody came up. There was like 3 people involved: a woman, a Hispanic man, and a black man, and it was like set up so one of the men stole the woman's purse and ran off, and everybody saw it. And then they asked everybody what happened, and nobody's story matched. There was like prejudice. It was the black guy. In fact, it wasn't. I mean, it was absolutely fascinating that people saw a perception, all colored. It was demonstrating that eyewitnessing, the eyewitness supposed to be, the best you can get in the legal system, is completely untrustworthy. So your memories are useless. Come into the now. What am I experiencing right this moment? That I can know. The feelings I'm having right this second, that I can know. I can't remember anything else. Right? Everything else is a memory and therefore is suspect. What do I know? What I'm experiencing this moment is quite literally all I know. Future, forget it. It's all projection. It's all expectation. It can't be known. The past can't be known either. So that's really great. Yeah, it's all nonsense and a waste of time because no one is right. Is that correct? Yes. And you'll just turn on any news program and you'll see just completely flimsy perceptions put out as if they're actually news and the truth. There's a huge discomfort in that going, oh my God, what is the truth? How do you get to the truth? Right? And there's also a huge relief by recognizing that none of this out here is the truth. The truth is you. The only truth, the only reality is the perceiver themselves, not what is perceived. That's where you put all your energy. That's the whole point of non-dual inquiry, is to know the perceiver, because the perceived cannot be trusted. If the perceiver is fully known, when the perceiver is fully known, the glass is clear. And now you will actually see what is really there. You'll be able to discern. Right? And that's where the freedom lies. Daryl, hello, Daryl. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. There's Diane in the UK. Hi, Diane. There's Yanis. Hello, Yanis. Good to see you. Thank you for the great IRET Grand Reunion. Greetings to you all. Yes. IRET, for those of you who don't know, stands for Inner Reconciliation Energy Techniques. That's my way of teaching, basically meridian tapping. There's Marty Hale in Vancouver. Hello, Marty. There's Lydia. Hi, Lydia. It's so good to see you. Hi again. Joanne McCann, new. Is that your name, new, or are you just new here? Because you say hi again. So, but still kind of new, I guess, newish. There's Dorothy in Denmark. Hey, Jonas, possible to heal ourselves from all illnesses? Absolutely. You probably heard my what I was talking about with Crispin. And yes, absolutely it is. The cure to all illnesses, again, I'm not a doctor, no, so don't anybody come down on me, is to know who you really are. To heal the disconnection from your soul that has kept you from being fully who you are, because that's where all the energy is going, and that is the energy out of which all illness arises, in my humble opinion. And I've seen it happen. When that energy of safety opens, using inner reconciliation, the various techniques that I use with it, that inner energy of safety begins to open, and that energy becomes freed from its job of defense, healing takes place. I've seen it happen. It usually starts with emotional healing, but then eventually works into physical as well. Maybe some people here can testify to it. Joanne says, good subject for the past 2 months. I feel like my awakening has slowed right down. I think it might be to do with the vaccine. Maybe not taking time to connect as often because I have been super busy. Well, don't think of it in terms of some external events affecting your awakening, right? That puts artificial roadblocks in the way, and it'll actually make you think it's not happening when it is. The only reason you want to do the awakening is because it's already happened. People that haven't had some kind of awakening don't seek it. They don't think it's important. They don't miss it. They don't notice it slowing down. Right? What is slowing down? What's slowing down isn't the awakening per se, as it is the process of this this shift that takes place. And I can't really even describe it. Sometimes it's overt, this huge insight. Sometimes it's a big sense of oneness. Sometimes it's just a very subtle redirection of our lives. We find ourselves drawn to satsang instead of, sports or, or whatever it is and occupy. We want to be someplace like here instead of that. Well, that is the awakening, right? So what's happening is that awakening has to go south. It has to sink into the whole of your being. It has to kind of recalibrate the emotional system, the physical system at the level of the cells, karma, all of it, right? There's so much that it is doing, and it's going as fast as you are capable of it to go. It's not going to, it's not going to blow your head off. The process, it's very gentle, very kind. Right? And so whatever it takes for that to happen, and I can't predict why some it may seem to go fast, some may seem to go slow, some may seem to like fits and starts. There's no rhyme or reason for it. And it's not that one person's doing it better than another. That's the way the mind likes to look at it, because the mind thinks that it's making it happen. The mind still wants to take credit for your awakening. Say, oh, this is what I can do to awaken. You can't do anything to start it, to stop it, to interfere with it, to speed it up, to slow it down. All you can do is surrender to it and say, I'm yours. So if your life needs to be busy, then it needs to be busy. You could take in the midst of your busyness, if there's even a moment where you remember yourself, no problem, right? And there will be, right? Wow, I'm really super busy. There'll be a level of consciousness there. Just acknowledge there's the level of consciousness, and then be doing whatever you have to be doing, the things that have to get done. And don't let the mind tell you that that's interfering, because then that will create a sense of fear, and that will create a sense of doubt, and that will create a sense, and you'll feel like you're not making any progress or you're slow, but in fact, nothing has changed at all. It's just the way the mind is reacting to the transformation that's taking place. And you say, do you think it might have to do with the vaccine? Do you mean by that there are more people being vaccinated, or maybe you took the vaccine? Either way, you don't have to say to say. It's not important. Nothing external can affect it. So if you feel like you need to take the vaccine for whatever reason, and I know people that do, a close friend of mine, if he doesn't take it, he doesn't work, period. So, and to other people who have to travel, so they're going to have to, because other countries are going to require it. I think over time, there'll be enough evidence to discover whether or not it is safe or not, even though essentially I'm opposed to it. I also at the same time recognize that there are extenuating circumstances, and I'm going to be traveling internationally. I may have to get it. Right? There was a time when to travel internationally, there were several that you had to get. You had to be vaccinated at certain things before you could go to Europe from the United States, for example, and that went on probably into the 70s or so, and then that relaxed over time. So some of this is quite normal, some of it isn't. So, but nothing can stop your awakening. You didn't start it, remember? It's not like you decided one day you were going to wake up and you've been working at it really diligently. It happened to you. It took you over, right? It fell on your head. I was certainly not somebody who was looking for it. Right? So it just happened, and so you welcome it. But I thought, I thought took responsibility for it. I had to be this certain way, and I had to do all the right things, and I couldn't think any bad thoughts, and I had to live by this moral code and be monk-like and never ask for anything. All of those things that I did, thinking that I somehow was the agent making it happen. And little by little, there was just an increasing amount of surrender to the process, and just let it unfold however it's going to unfold, recognizing I can't speed it up, I can't slow it down. So this moment then becomes the only thing I have to concern myself with. And there's such a liberation in that. So worry not about anything, Joanne. P.S. Hello, P.S. Hello, GP. Someone on here said they can't get drunk anymore. And for me, it's the same. Do you know why? You said it's also like that for you, if I remember correctly. Greetings from Germany. Yes. I mean, it's not like if I have a beer or two, a glass of wine, I don't feel it, but nothing gets incapacitated. Right? The general, it simply doesn't affect it. So it doesn't have the same kind of power. And yes, it's very likely that can happen, and also completely lose the taste for it. I did for years, decades actually. I had no desire for it. I think I had a glass of champagne on New Year's Eve when I was 43 years old, and I hadn't done anything since I was 19. So it can just completely go away as well. So it's not really a big deal unless there's a compulsion there or some kind of addiction, like you have to. Other than that, it's not a big deal, and it won't have the same kind of impact, because when your sense of self and the clarity is arising from a different place, not the mind, the occasional aberrations of the mind won't affect it. So, Facebook user, Namaskaram, G and Satsang family. I had a profound experience a few days ago. I realized that there is no commander, no Steffi in this meat robot. It only acts under orders of the nervous system. My experience went beyond the concept of words, the illusions of time, space, and objects. There was only emptiness, and in that, an infinite number of possibilities. Experiencing that the person I thought I was doesn't exist was stomach churning. Everyone is pure consciousness. It's so obvious, but it, Same Facebook user. Hello, hello. I have trouble with sorting things out and throwing them away. I stick so much. No, I don't think it's the same one. Was there more to that, Steffi? Please identify yourself. I'll take it up what it is. Let's see if there's any more to it. I just jumped down here. Gosh, gosh, darn it. Darn it. Where'd you go? Okay. Wonderful. Yes. What you experienced was the emptiness of your true being. That is you, right? And there wasn't even a you experiencing it. It was the emptiness experiencing itself. This is something the mind can't get, right? So don't try to churn it over intellectually. There was no you there experiencing emptiness, right? Because if there was, then it wasn't empty. There was someone there, but the person wasn't there. Right? This is the context, the understanding to get around it is this is emptiness experiencing itself. Consciousness experiencing itself in its purity. And pure consciousness is empty. It just is. It's consciousness without the content. Because consciousness does not need content to be, right? When the consciousness is there, when content is there, consciousness is aware of content and the producer of content. But when none is there, consciousness is simply aware of itself. That is the emptiness. And yes, the nature of emptiness is infinite possibility. If I become something, I am now limited by the delineation of that thing. But if I am no thing, I am completely empty. I am infinite. That's the nature of the infinite. And so anything can arise within me, any form, even the meat robot Steffi can arise and even be enjoyed. Once you know it's not you, it's just an experience that you, the emptiness in which it has arisen, as just kind of an evanescent ripple, like in this vast ocean of consciousness. They can just enjoy the ripple, knowing it will pass. Everyone is pure consciousness. It's so obvious. Yes, because it's all into and of consciousness. It's only consciousness experiencing itself. There isn't even a Steffi experiencing an other. Yeah, just take that in. Ooh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm not sure. It says, but it, ... But it, is this the same Facebook user that says, hello, I have trouble sorting things out and throwing them away? No, it doesn't seem like it's the same thing. So, oops, sorry, didn't mean to click on that. AGP says, Mark, so Steffi, if there's more, I'll try to pick it up. I'm hopping down here to see if there's more. Doesn't look like it. I was looking for another Facebook user. Okay, no. So okay, so I'll leave it at that. Leave it at that for now. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's the kind of experience I want you to see. I want you to have the experience that isn't an experience. There's Mark. Hey, Mark. Greetings from rainy Sweden. I have checked the replay. You got this. Okay, sir. Thank you. There's the other Jonas. So happy to be here. Listen to you tonight and this morning, GP. Last night, or it happened by itself. I saved a woman from being beaten to death by alcoholics. Whoa. Was such intense 2 hours. Well done, young man. Well done. Wow. Thank you for being a hero. Thank you for stepping into your true masculine. Very, very good. Yeah, I'm sure others will give you a big, a lot of praise for that. Wow. Very courageous. Looks like there was more than one of them too. Wow. Facebook user. Okay, hello. I have trouble with sorting things out and throwing them away. I stick so much to my belongings, but I know it's not healthy. What can I do? Well, it becomes an opportunity to examine what is it you're really holding on to, right? there are people who are really obsessive about it. I don't know if you're, if it's an OCD level thing where you just can't throw things out, or you have to hoard, right? What's underneath it is a sense of deep loss. It was probably some instance in your child where you were never allowed to hold on to anything, right? I had exactly the opposite experience. I really couldn't. My mother would come in and just throw things out. The more I liked them, the more she threw them out, right? I had a bicycle she loved. She threw it out. There was nothing wrong with the bicycle, but I loved it too much, so she threw it out. So I didn't react by hoarding. I reacted by disconnecting. I just, to the point where I just let things fall away. I didn't let myself attach to like anything at all. The opposite can happen though, and that is just this grabbing and holding out of desperation to just have something that is your own. So just really be present with the energy that wants to hold on, and be willing to ask yourself, what is it that I'm really trying to hold on to? What is this feeling that I want to get? And this deep sense of loss of something that has been taken from me. There is a deep trauma there to be explored. So when you say, I know it's not healthy, you're really judging yourself for something that's not your fault, right? It's not healthy only in the sense that it's taking away energy from you that would better serve you in other places. But that energy isn't available for other places. And the reason it isn't available is not your fault. It has nothing to do with you. It's simply how your nervous system responded in an environment where you were not allowed to hold on to stuff, right? You couldn't allow yourself to get attached. So you got very, very attached. So what can you do? First off, recognize that it's not your fault, that it is a result of conditions, that it is really an inevitable effect of the particular experience you had. Pretty much it's a childhood trauma of some sort. And begin in earnest the process of, instead of trying to get rid of the habit, wanting to become closer to yourself. Forgive the habit. It isn't the problem. It was a solution, right? That's an incomplete solution. It's not, whenever we're traumatized and there's something lacking, we come up, if we can't get what we actually need, right? And for children, it's love and acceptance and a recognition of who you are, and a real acceptance of you as you are, which most of us don't get. We're forced to conform. If we don't get that, we try to compensate for that gaping hole. And it can become addictions. It become habits like you have, and those habitual behaviors, right, can be anything, right? They can be shopping, it can be sex, it can be relationships, it can be bad relationships, it can be substance abuse, it can be any number of different things. It can be staring at your phone. If you look at all the people staring at the phone walking down the street, you can see how traumatized our society actually is. That's the only reason you would do it. It's not that interesting, right? But something inside is looking, something to get it. That's our inner hungry ghost. How do you feed that? Right? EFT can help, right? And it really becomes the inner reconciliation. Being willing to be with the feeling that's there, if you actually do throw something away, if you let go of something. If you let go of something, you find yourself sitting in that emotional emptiness. This is not the universal emptiness I'm talking about, which is quite full and harmonious. It's full of joy, right? This is the emotional emptiness of a traumatized system that needs something it didn't get. That's what it boils down to. There's a real human need, and that did not get its proper fulfillment. You can see there's no sin in that. You're not a bad person. There's not something wrong with you. You've got a habit you've got to get rid of. No. There's an emptiness in you that needs to be filled. And you, at first, are the only one that can fill it. After a while, as you're filling it, you'll find others coming in to amplify it, to support you, right? Which you already have. You have a whole bunch of people right here supporting you. I'm supporting you. I'm turning you away from any kind of judgment or self-criticism, thinking it's this big problem you have to overcome. It's not any more than the problem that everybody in this highly traumatized culture needs to overcome. And come back to yourself. Right? Come back to you. Come back to reconnect with your soul. If you're on a mission to reconnect with your soul, the actual habit itself will become less and less important. And you will find that you can let go of something. Even you throw something out you know you don't need, there'll be a courage to simply be with that feeling that wants to hold on. Say, I know you want to hold on, but it's not helping us. I'm just going to be here with you now while we go through this feeling of what's missing. Let's see together if we can find what's missing. It becomes a beautiful dialogue with your heart. And your whole energy system is basically just a traumatized little kid that didn't get what it needs and is still clinging. So I hope that sets you on the path, my friend. Merck, what is the most common reason for people to get on this path? It's not the most common reason. It's the only reason. Suffering. Yeah, I don't consider people on the path if it's an intellectual curiosity about Vedanta. They're not on the path. They're pundits or academics. They're curious. They're philosophical. What gets somebody on the path to actually do something? Suffering. We seek a relief from everything the world's doing is trying to get a relief from suffering. Everything we're doing is trying to get a relief from suffering, isn't it? Isn't everything you do trying to ease the suffering? We don't call it suffering. We think, oh, it's just the desire for stuff. But that chasing of a desire, the motivation behind trying to get it is that somehow this sense of emptiness, sense of lack is going to be filled when I fulfill that desire. That's suffering. Suffering is that desire for something you don't have, which means there's a sense of my own incompleteness, my own lack, which is at the root of all of it. When that's filled, it's not like desires go away. It's just they're now in proportion. Because of course, there's human desires. They're going to happen when my happiness is no longer dependent upon those desires, right? And that's the path. The path is to a permanent happiness. Happiness that isn't a cheat. It isn't here one moment and gone the next. That's what we're all looking for. And we all intuitively know it's possible. We've been ignorantly told that, well, in order to get happiness, you have to have X, Y, or Z. You got to have a great relationship. We all find that great relationships aren't as easy to maintain as we'd like them to be. You got to have enough money in the bank, which means you'll feel safe. We all know that doesn't do it. None of the things do it. Right? What can do it? The discovery of your own inner completeness, the discovery of who you are. And so it is suffering. I mean, it's why it was the first thing the Buddha said, the first words out of his mouth to the first people who would listen. There is suffering. There is a cause of suffering. There is an end to suffering, and there's a means to that end. It's the Four Noble Truths of Suffering are just one of the foundations of Buddha's teaching. He didn't start talking about enlightenment. The first words out of his mouth were about suffering. It's the universal human experience, and it is what sets us on the path. The denial of our suffering is what keeps us stuck in the loop. When we accept our suffering and turn towards it, recognizing it has a cause, which was the second noble truth, there's a cause to it, we realize there's an end to it. And then there's a means to that end. And that means to that end is the dismantling of the false sense of self. The end of suffering comes not with conditions changing to those that are more desirable, but when the sufferer is seen to be unreal. Thank you, Merck. Joanne, yes, so true. A lot of different views about the vaccine in the spiritual community. Yeah, the whole gamut. The whole gamut. And I refuse to take a side. Everybody needs to make that decision for themselves and how best to do it, to learn as much as you can, to feel comfortable with your decision. I don't ask people to be foolhardy. I don't say, I'm not one of these people who, anybody who's questioning the vaccine becomes an anti-vaxxer, anti-science, which is just extreme, of course. And that those that think, it's a great grand conspiracy. Well, there's got to be some evidence on both sides, and I think there's truth across the whole spectrum, right? Right. But this is how we have to intelligently deal with a world we can't really control, and have to function in as best we can to bring as much light as we can. So it becomes a very personal decision, and I don't judge anybody for what they decide to do on the subject. I do know that at the level of consciousness, that the idea that there is a solution has alleviated an enormous amount of fear in the general field of human consciousness, which of course releases more energy, lowers the stress, people are feeling better, and will also make us more healthy and will increase the immune system. It's just, I know it's having that effect. So thank you, Joanne. Merck, I've been suspicious about concepts ever since Dad took me to see the border of Norway. I was so disappointed. So there was no actual border and everything was the same. Yes. It's really, you visit the Four Corners, right? Which is like New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado, because they're all territories. They weren't shaped, these sides of them were not shaped by rivers. They're just a square, which is completely imaginary. And you go to the place and there's a big thing on the ground, the Four Corners, the actual place where you can step in all four states all at once. And you look and you go, well, without this plaque, where's the corners? It's totally a concept. Yeah. There are no borders. We made it up. There's no time. There's no days of the week, right? The hunter-gatherers didn't have days of the week. They watched things go through the cycle of the moon, the cycle of the seasons, right? They weren't dividing things up 24 hours in a day. Sun went up, sun went down, right? It worked. As we became more complicated, we had to invent these inventions to invent time to make nature correspond to the way we wanted to do things, which got really bad in the industrial age with the factories and all that sort of stuff. Humans became machines, and now that's at its peak, and we're rebelling against it. We don't want to be machines. Jonas, I felt something was off in my neighbor's place and spontaneously acted when I was called to. What a situation. She was just no words, just such a powerful experience. And isn't it amazing that you didn't even think about it? Your natural instincts took over. And when it's really clear what we need to do, we do it, right? But the energy system does not hesitate when it's clear, right? The mind fogs things up. Well, should I really? Am I interfering, right? But sometimes it's so overt. You just act. Period. Just do it. I remember once in the subway in New York, there was a blind guy, right? And for some reason, I guess he didn't feel that part of the thing. He started walking too close, and I just grabbed and pulled him back instinctively, right? Because he could feel the edge, but if his stick was over the side, it would have been knocked out of his hand, and he could have been hit in the head by the mirror that's on the subway, right? It almost happened to me once, so I know it's possible. I just instinctively reached him out and pulled him back. Didn't think about it. There was no thought whatsoever. If I'd thought, it'd be too late. The guy might be laying down on the floor bleeding. So we know what to do, right? Stay out of your mind and your instincts will know what to do. Merck continued, work my way back to the ultimate concept of I. Beautiful. I as a concept. It's so good to see. Like the borders between countries is completely in the mind. So is the I. So is the sense of a separation between you and me. It's a mental construct. It doesn't exist as a fact. It's a mental construct projected on reality. It is not a reality we have to escape from and return to oneness. We have to dismantle the illusion that there's anything but oneness. Beautiful. G, when you talk about being aware of being aware, does that mean I pay attention to everything that arises in me? Or I notice and divert attention back to the me who witnesses it? Because diverting my attention back is a lot more easier. But there's still things I fall into. Actually not. Right? Notice that the sense of there being things you fall back into is also being witnessed. You're not falling into anything if you're the witness. If you think of yourself as a person falling in and out or focusing their attention inward or outward, then there's going to be a sense of moving in and out of it. So aware of being aware, yeah, just be aware of being aware. Even when that feeling is there of falling into things, you go, oh, wait, I'm aware of falling. I'm still aware of being aware. And the experience in front of me right now is that of falling into things. Oh, what does that feel like? Oh, it's a sense of my attention being drawn away. And all the while I'm noticing it. I'm aware of being aware. It's really simple. It's just, when you look at the computer screen, you're looking at me, you're actually looking at the screen. You're not aware of the screen, you're aware of me, okay? But in fact, you're also looking at the screen simultaneously. Now I bring your attention to it and you realize, oh yeah, I'm looking at the screen. And the screen is modulating itself to present this picture. This picture does not exist without the screen. The screen exists without the picture. So this picture is the screen. The thing you're noticing, that sense of falling into things is the screen. That's awareness being aware. It's made of awareness. Just like the image you're looking of me is the screen. You can't separate the two. It's the nature of the screen modulating itself to create an image. The image is not the reality, the screen is. So that's how you do it. And yes, pay attention to everything arises or notice it and divert the attention back to me. Yep, divert the attention back to me. Obviously things need your attention. It's not going, sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm aware of being aware. It's a very subtle thing. You're just aware of it. You're having a conversation. You're aware of the fact that you're having a conversation. You don't have to interrupt and say, wait, sorry, hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It becomes very natural because it's always there, right? Right, which means you're always there. And since it is you, it can't be it has to always be there. And so it really becomes like an undivided attention where you realize that everything you're experiencing, like the picture on the screen, is the screen. What you are experiencing is the awareness. That's all there is. Thank you, Jay. Dear Faith. Hey, my Sheik. Spiritual tribe. I struggle to understand destiny. What do you think about karmic contract between people? And if it exists, could we get rid of our karma? It exists if you say it does. It doesn't if you don't. There's no law out there. There's no board. There's no somebody I've made a contract with that somebody else is enforcing, right? This is just how we see things. We think in dimensions and various beings. And I've heard the lords of karma, right? Who you make all the deals with in between lives and they enforce things and that sort of thing. That's that is all actually a species of idolatry, right? All power belongs to the self. If I identify myself with the self, all power belongs to me. If I identify myself as the person, all power still belongs to me, but because of that identification, I've now projected that power on others. Because I now see myself as this finite person subject to all these various laws of karma and destiny and conditioning and akashic records and other dimensional beings influencing and angels and all sorts of things. Right? But that's only because I have, in identifying with the person, I have disowned the fact that I am the power that makes it all happen. And now I ignorantly attribute to that power to somebody else, not realizing that I'm creating it. There's a karmic contract. You created it. You invented it. You invented the reason why you need to make it, and you invented the people you're making it with. So the bottom line is there is no karmic contract if you say there isn't. And that's how you get out of our karma. That's how you get rid of karma. There is no karma for the self. The self is not something that is going through iterations. Right? That's only a sense of being a person that goes through iterations and makes mistakes and has to learn. The consciousness that is witnessing it, what does it have to learn? It's the ultimate. It is the real you. We only have to learn, quote unquote, to disidentify with that which is not us. Now, that said, there can be a strong sense of a contract because we have decided we have a contract or made some kind of a vow. You know, people do that. They make vows of celibacy. I will never be happy again. I'm never going to love again. We can do these things that have a very powerful impact, and we can make them at a time forget that we've done it and then wonder why we can't have a relationship because we decided we were not going to. And in such a deep traumatic moment that the nervous system took that as marching orders. All right, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. Right? And so we don't even know that we created it in the first place. All of it was created by you. So there can be a feeling there of it, and there can be an acting out of it because of this energy we put in motion. It can have some momentum to it. But when you recognize that you're the one that created it, you can begin to dismantle it and stop being its victim. Oh, yeah, maybe I did, but that was dumb. I think I'll not do that. I think I will rescind the contract I made. Since I made it, I can break it because it was all done by me. Therefore, I hereby release myself from the contract I alone made. And I rely on my own natural goodness and wisdom to replace whatever it was that I felt I needed a contract for. And I forgive myself for doing it. I recognize why I felt I needed to do it. And I now reconnect with the source that is my actual source of power that does not need a contract to make itself whole, good, or abundant. I connect with myself that does not need to be corrected. How's that? Tapping on vows is one of the things that I teach that not many do. You know, the nature of these kind of karmic vows or sacred vows that we make that get very, very ingrained in the nervous system, but they're not real. You made it yourself. So because you make it yourself, you can say, I can break it myself. Jonah says, Gabor Mate is absolutely amazing. Watched and listened to so many hours of him intuitively years ago, and he was spot on. Yeah, it's really good to hear somebody that has the authority of an MD say what I've been saying for decades, because I don't have any of that authority. I'm just a rock and roll drummer turned spiritual teacher. Faith said, I would like to ask for your prayers to give me a hand to surrender my ego, Babaji. Babaji P. I heard that saints and gurus can aid their students. Please pray for me so the veil goes away. I love you with my heart. Yes. I am and I will. Yeah. Your desire to surrender is your prayer. A pure desire is the purest prayer there is. It has been answered. Bless you. Joanne, yes, I 100% agree. That's why I think the children should have at least 1 hour a day in school for meditating, connecting to themselves to deal with trauma. And self-love should be a must. I would love to see this happen in our schools. I've had several teachers want to teach inner reconciliation, which is my way of reconnecting with the soul, in the schools. I think it would be great. The schools actually promote that trauma. They feed on it. Right? Because the schools, modern schools, which date back, our modern school system actually goes back to about the 15th century. Yeah, about the 15th century, and it was designed for training monks by the church. Total indoctrination, a total discounting of their individuality, a total enculturation into their role as a monk. And our modern schools is that. Our modern schools are nothing other than to get you to be anything, to accept the rules of the tribe, and to finish the work of getting you to deny who you are, so that you become whatever it is the culture needs you to become. So I don't hold out large promises of the schools adopting that, because that's not their purpose. They're a culturally enforcing institution. Although there are examples. My granddaughter goes to a Montessori school, which is a very different character, and it's had such a very profound effect on her, and very naturally, without dampening that spirit. So it's great to see. John, so beautiful, Faith. I used to look down on devotion, but I feel the same love towards another woman guru. Beautiful. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the devotion. The guru will guide your devotion so it's not personal, right? The guru does not want your adulation. They want your freedom. The true guru wants your freedom, period. Right? But that sense of devotion can start with a person. It will grow to a God, something beyond the person. But eventually that sense of devotion will turn towards the true God, which is consciousness itself. And even Nisargadatta, a very, very Vedantic teacher, said, worship consciousness as God. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Susanna, hello. I love you, G. I love you too. You're so cool. And I feel grateful every day. Finally found my teacher after looking for so many years. I feel so grateful to find my student. Where have you been? You're so cool. Look at this. I had to get almost 70 years old to be cool. God damn. That's not fair. Positive Patty, this is so powerful. Reconnect with your soul. Amazing. Yes. Yes. That's right. Inner reconciliation. You hear me talk about it all the time. I've been working on it. Well, 5 years ago, I released the first level of inner reconciliation. I'm actually planning a whole live multi-week course with it, with my senior facilitator of it, guy who's been with me from the beginning, helped me actually develop a lot of it, Evan. And we're planning something for July, right? A real a level of I think what we're going to call it the foundation of facilitating. How to integrate it so much into yourself that you'll feel ready to take on the possibility that you might be able to help others. And then we'll have some more advanced trainings for that. But that's what it's about, reconnecting to your soul. You become disconnected from you. When I say the soul, I mean your true nature. I don't mean like this thing, right? Right. I have a soul. How can you have a soul? Then who are you? You don't have a soul. You are the soul. But emotionally and psychologically, we have become splintered. So our wholeness is not available to us. That's what I mean by a disconnect from your soul. It's the whole of you is not available because it's been replaced by this artificial critter you had to create in order to survive. And that's the trauma. That's trauma, right? And I'm so glad I hear Gabor Mate. That's the way he defines trauma, not a particular instance that did something, but a fundamental thing that made it impossible for you to have access to yourself, right? Because it was just too dangerous. And so healing is reconnecting to yourself. And that's the way I put it. And everything I teach is about that. First allowing, then inquiry, and then integration. We call it invite, inquire, integrate. It's kind of a beginning way of trying to express it. So I'm going to be doing an intensive about it. Hopefully a lot of you will join me. GP has such amazing analogies over and over again. Yeah, wonderful. Facebook, the beach ball analogy is the same one my therapist uses in this context. So true. Thanks, GP. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, it's perfect. It's. I mean, yeah, we've all probably tried to do it, especially when we're kids, trying to hold it underwater. You can't do it, right? Or if you are, it's the only thing you can do. It's pretty funny. God is good, says Truth Loops. God is goodness itself. God is not a person who is good. God is goodness itself. The goodness of everything is God. Every good you feel is God. So God is love. God is not someone who loves. It is love itself. When you feel love, you feel God. Same thing. They are one. Eveline, Dr. John Sarno. Yeah, Sarno. It was not Sorrow, Sarno. Thank you. The correction, the mind-body prescription, healing back pain and more. Dr. Sarno links emotional repression to people who have chronic pain, and so many heal with his books on mind-body work. Yep. Yeah, he made the connection directly to chronic pain and came up with a solution for it, which, of course, there's not supposed to be one, right? But there is, and it's all emotional. It's all emotional pain. It's trauma. It's disconnection from your soul. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, he was one of the pioneers of it. Didn't die, that was 10 years ago, I guess it was. But he's got many students who studied with him. We're carrying on the good work. Jonas again, giving without expecting a result, outcome, or what have you. Yes, it's really one of the most beautiful, uplifting things there are. It's giving to the self of the self. It's pure love. Yes, it is pure love then. Pure love seeks nothing in return. And at the same time is totally open to receiving what is given. Right? So without the expectation, it becomes an exchange of pure love. That is the ultimate romance. Robert, good to see you. Hi, G and all from Southern Nevada. We have talked about anger, and I have not been angry, and I've not been angry. Is this a lost emotion that needs to resurface and get angry at others to release the emotion? Thank you. No, there's a limit to it. If you're really spiritually maturing, you won't be suppressing it anymore. If you haven't suppressed it, all of the suppressed anger can come to the surface, right? Because that anger is not genuine anger in the moment. Anger still serves a purpose, right? It serves a purpose for us to make distance, right? When there's something that could be threatening or something that isn't for us, that sense of moving away from it, right, is quite legitimate. Say the feeling of fear is the body getting ready to run, to get away. The feeling of anger is the physical sensation of the body getting ready to defend itself. So it's quite natural, and there are times when we need to defend ourselves. The problem is with the unprocessed anger that accumulates in all of us and children, because we cannot express anger towards our parents, then gets projected on circumstances that we're experiencing, and is inappropriate for those experiences. And underlying it is a sense of powerlessness. Right. And that powerlessness, the suppression of the anger, happened because when we needed to express the anger, we couldn't, because we did not have any power to. And again, you get in the situation that you can't run and you can't fight, you're now traumatized. What do? You disconnect from your soul, you take a different position because you cannot express your genuine outrage, right? Because it'll be worse. In a lot of cases, you become abusive, so you don't feel it. And then it festers and it starts coming out sideways. It starts projecting it on its stuff where it doesn't need it. And what we really have to go through to root out all of that unnecessary anger, so that the only time we feel anger is when it's really necessary, which is rare. In order to do that, we have to own our powerlessness, right? Because there are, in fact, times in our lives, even as adults, when we are powerless, right? When the corona thing happened, we were powerless, right? Okay, it's here. We got to do something about it. I can't control it. Can't control the media. I can't control the way various governments and institutions are reacting to it. So there's a certain amount of powerlessness that I can accept that, but it doesn't have to become rage or freak out, right? Now, getting back in touch with that powerlessness of being a child, you can feel the anger that could not get expressed. And now you can have enormous compassion with that. And that's the energy we want to allow to release. So if you haven't been angry, it's not necessarily a lost emotion. It may be that you're actually in the right state and there's nothing around you to get angry about. And so there's no artificial anger happening, right? So, please, it's not a witch hunt. You don't have to go looking for it. A lot of people do that. Well, there must be anger somewhere. Right? We got to find the anger. There might not be, right? Believe me, if it's there, it'll get triggered. It'll come up. You'll recognize it. You can process it. But when it's not there, my God, enjoy it. Enjoy the freedom from it. You've worked for it, my friend. You've done a lot of work for yourself. It's okay if the work works. And you actually transcend. It's okay for there to be an end game to inner work. It doesn't have to be that, oh my God, there must be still something there, please. No, if it's not there, it's not there, right? If there's still a trigger there, that something in the environment might trigger and it comes up, you'll find that out when the trigger happens. You don't need to know in advance. The trigger never happens, it doesn't get triggered. Fine, right? You may it can just pass away with the body. Wonderful. Thanks for Patricia. Love to you, Georgie, and all the Wild West from the Wild West of Vancouver. Love to you, Patricia. There's Jonah. Such happiness right now. Almost overwhelming. Oh, let it overwhelm. Yeah. Isn't it amazing how even the nervous system can only handle so much joy at a time? Wow. Lydia, GP, I love what you're saying about the power in ourselves instead of power in numbers, etc. Power in consciousness. Wow. It reminds me of You Are the Placebo from Joe Dispenza. Yeah, you were the placebo. It always baffled me why the placebo always shows up as a statistically viable, sometimes the placebo as good or better than the actual active compound they were testing. And they just write it off as the placebo. They don't even bother. We say, wait a minute. Wow. Why is that work? Why is it working at all? It shouldn't work at all. But it's the ideology of medical science that just dismisses it. It doesn't pay any attention to it. I was like, wait a minute, hold on, stop. Isn't that worth studying? Well, a few people have, and they found that, yeah, like Joe Dispenza, that it's all you. That the discovery of neuroplasticity and all of that, which is a step towards more total consciousness, no longer says DNA is the hand you were dealt. Have a nice day. It's plastic. It responds. It's completely malleable. Not necessarily quickly, but it's completely malleable. So thanks, Lydia. Oh, love having you here. Diane, I'm very confused, GP. When I accept the existence of a higher power, of a power greater than me, is it really my own true nature? Yes. As we're identified with the human self, it's not the human you, right? I really have to draw. It's not like your ego, right? As I was saying in the beginning, and that trauma that creates the soul disconnection, we create a false version of ourselves to present to the environment so that we don't get hurt and we get what we need. We all do that. Because if the natural expression of myself earns the displeasure of my caregivers, my true nature becomes a problem. It becomes dangerous, and I have to disconnect it. That's the soul disconnect I talk about. That's the original trauma, right? Now that person that we become, right, and we act out as a bunch of, at first it's nothing but conditioned patterns the nervous system is putting into place, and you don't even know it's happening. Later on, when the sense of identity forms, it forms around the conditioning because you don't have access to you. So now there's a you that isn't really you, but that's who you think you are. Now, that you, as it's embarking on the spiritual path and is trying to get to the higher truth, will, not recognizing that it's actually the truth of you, will see it as a power greater than itself. It'll see it as a guru. It'll see it as God. It'll see it as the higher self, but it'll be something other than myself. And from the point of view of this one that I think I am, that I'm not really, that's the humble place to be. Because a lot of people will get the ego, oh, it's really me, I am God. And now the ego is really inflated. And I'm sure you've heard people talk about, well, I am God. Right? You could just feel it. Ooh, it smells bad. I mean, it smells of ego, right? But the genuine humility that recognizes something greater can eventually be brought in that humility and in that surrender to see that that is the truth of you, and thus be completely reconnected and restored to the reality of you. And it doesn't aggrandize the false you, it falls away. And you see the grandeur and magnificence of your true being, the true you. So thank you for asking that, Diane. Yogeshvara, amazing explanations. Thank you. Daniel Burr. Hello, Daniel. Hey, GP, I've heard you say everything being perceived can't be me. But then I hear you say observing what's being observed is one. So can you explain? Just curious what you meant. Yeah, it is curious and can be a bit confusing because it's the process of teaching. It's the process of pointing, right? I actually let my tea get cold. I drank it too slow. The inward path, the path of Vedanta, is the path that I am not that, I am not that, I am not that, I am not that. And the reason we take that is because the tantric path, the path of I am all, cannot truly be embraced until you know who that I is. Because if it's the ego trying to be everybody, it just gets very confused. And a lot of people do that. I'm one with everything. I'm connected to everything, right? It's coming from the sense of a false self, right? So the first thing we have to do is find out who I am, right? And so I have to start withdrawing from all my ideas about who I am, withdrawing from my relationships, from my reference points, from my thoughts, from my emotions, from my memories, everything that I have used to give myself a form, a shape, a particular identity, till there's nothing left except that pure sense of being that is not referencing to anything. Pure, I am, full stop. Just the sense of isness, as Muji likes to call it. Just the sense of is. It's what is, without any reference to anything other than your own being. That's the inward path of Vedanta, the path of neti, not this, not this. This is when I say, if you can perceive it, it's not you. That keeps you moving back and back and back till there's an immersion, kind of a union with, well, literally all sense of identity disappears into that which is imperceivable, but is infinitely known. The knowing and the knower are now one. Now, at that moment, life doesn't become empty, blank. There's nothing here, right? I'm enlightened now, so everything disappears. There's no more rainstorms. I don't get hungry, right? I don't like tea anymore, right? It all disappears as a big void. A lot of people like kind of picture it like that. They go, well, I don't want that. Well, damn straight. I don't either, right? So now from this place of the disidentified, formless, pure consciousness, I can now turn outward and begin to take in the experience. And I can begin to see that when I was experiencing things from the point of view of a separate self, of an identification, of being a form, I saw everything else as a separate self. And therefore, that my seeing of them was my perception of them and not the reality of them. But when I'm now fully myself, as I truly am, I see them as they truly are. And I know that that which is me and that which is them is the same consciousness. This is the outward path, the path of the heart, the path where the whole universe comes back into you. Also the path of Tantra, the path of the divine embodiment. And this is where the big mind, big heart, right? I am absolutely nothing. I am everything. And the two of them merge together. But in my experience, the inward path to I am nothing comes first. Once a disidentification takes place, now the you that is turning outward is not a person anymore. It is the infinite cosmic consciousness. And that allness is not someone in particular, and therefore it is not one with everything, it is everything. I am that. However it appears, I am that. All is Brahma self. All is Shiva being. All is God. And I am that. So the I is no longer identified with the form. It is identified with the formless. Therefore, all forms are my forms. And that famous quote from Nisargadatta I love to give. He says, to know that you are nothing is wisdom, the inward path. To know you are everything is love. It's the outward path. Between these two, my life flows. So you're not even stuck one place or the other. It's a pulsing like a heart. It's living. I am nothing and everything simultaneously. I am embracing the individual. I'm celebrating the individual piece of grass, the individual person, the way this unique being is, simultaneously recognizing him as just another face on the same soul, because the soul connect is total. How's that for you, Daniel? Hi to you, Facebook user. Hi, oops, Chris, lost. Well, there was Steffi again. Becomes complete. What was missing when I read it? Everyone is pure conscious, so obvious. Blah, 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 blah. Much love. Oh, I see the world through eyes of the person I'm identified with. Yet I see. That's okay, right? You will still see the world through those eyes, but the person won't be there anymore. Right? It's okay, right? Don't worry about this. People go, the person's still there. Well, the person is there, active in the nervous system, just as habit and functioning. The person isn't still there. There is no person. But you've believed in that person for so long, the nervous system has been trained to act like that, right? So the more you just keep disidentifying, the more it'll integrate into the system and the less you'll be concerned about it. So well done. Joanne, I just love your knowledge and how you explain things. Well, thank you. Play in. Wait. Oh, shoot. Skipped a heading. Oh, there's Daniel. Hi. Chrissy, there I say. Greetings from Ontario. Hello. Is the memory based on a feeling before the thought? At first, yes, because as kids, that's all we have is feelings. Thoughts come later. But then thoughts can be memories too. But, you know, a thought without a feeling doesn't really have much stickiness, right? It's just a thought, it kind of passes through. When there's a dynamic, right, a connection between thoughts and feelings, that's when there's some meat on the bones at that point. But usually the memories, if they're sticking around, it's because there's been some kind of emotional impact. So I'd say for the most part, memory and the thoughts come later as an explanation. But, you know, it's a continuum. They're very closely related. So thank you. Hello, Anja. Love Satsang. Thank you much for your wisdom. Thank you, says Joanne. You're welcome, everybody. Play on. Welcome. Hello from Fiona in Greece. Also late, but it's great to know I can listen to the replay. Great. Hello from Monterey. Hello, Alessandra. Facebook user Steffi, got you. Jacqueline, can you explain a little bit about free will and things being predestined? It's very confusing sometimes. To put it very simply, look at it this way, right? There's a certain aspect of free will, free choice, and that sort of thing that has usefulness. I don't want to completely discount it, you know, and just say there's no such thing as free will, right? There isn't, but look at it in context. It's not that cut and dry, black and white kind of stuff. When you're young, your nervous system is just responding. You have no free will as to how your nervous system reacts to the environment in which you are born, right? There's no conscious choice there. There's no freedom. It's just how your particular body is reacting to the particular environment you happen to be in and adapting to it in the way that it happens to do that, which is unique for everybody. Even identical twins, it will be different, right? Now, over time, right, if we remain in that conditioning and never question it, right, you know, and I just really become what I'm supposed to be and do all things, and I never listen to the inner discomfort to try to reconnect to my soul, I will think I am making decisions, but they're all driven unconsciously. So I'm not in free will. I don't have a free will. I think I do. I think I'm making a choice, but the underlying energy that's making that choice is not really a conscious choice. As Carl Jung put it, he says, I can do as I will, but I cannot will as I will. That's what he was pointing at, right? Now, when consciousness begins to emerge, and consciousness in the sense that I mean it, which is an awakening to the fact that my actions have been arising out of conditioning and not really been free at all, that consciousness is not conditioned. That is, to me, the beginning of the awakening. And it can be a huge dramatic insight, or it can be just little subtle things. And it's happening universally. I mean, the self-help movement is actually the budding of, wait a minute, I am not completely subject to my condition. There's something else there. Now, in that space, when the conditioned pattern is there and you recognize it as conditioned and you see it beginning to act, and you remain conscious and don't follow along with the reactive pattern, right? You're in a space where it's no longer just trigger response, stimulus response. There's a gap so that the pre-programmed response doesn't have to be that way. In that space, there's a sense of having a choice. And I can choose this or this. Now, when we look a little bit closer, we find that space of choosing is being informed by something else. What's informing it? Well, there's a discrimination there that says, whoa, if I do this, the consequences are not going to be good. I want better consequences. And what's driving me to make the choice is whatever sense I have in the moment of what is the best thing to do. So the choice then is not just I get to choose that. I will always be choosing the best to the degree that I can see it. So that's not free will in the sense I can do whatever I want, right? I will be doing whatever's best for me. And that will be governed by what I believe based on how conscious I've become, what the best actually is. And of course, that's based on what I think it is now. And I may do it and find out it wasn't really the best, and this is how we learn stuff. So you can see it's not the kind of free will or predestination that unconsciousness is totally predestined, right? Because you're not making any choice. But now when choice comes on the scene, there's kind of just levels of it. And you can see that ultimately, knowing yourself as you truly are, all of your choices will be a reflection of who you really are. So in that sense, you could say they're not really choices. They're simply the recognition of the truth. And so truth chooses. So you see, it's not as cut and dry as people want to make it. So the mission become increasingly conscious to the point where you know who you are so thoroughly that every quote unquote choice is driven by your knowledge of the truth. And then you are both in free will and not in free will. You're in total freedom, right? Because you're yourself. And you, knowing yourself, you'll always choose the best for yourself. It's really that simple. So on a human level, it feels like choice, right? And that's okay. It just matures to the point where it actually even transcends that. So what I got here, 206. I don't have a whole lot longer here, so I have to get ready for a interview I have to do after this. So let me see. Let's see, what's the last one I want to take here? GP is the bomb in reconciliation EFT. I'm the bomb, yo. Let's see. Tanja, face, thinking. All right, this will be the last one. It seems that although I decided on various conditioning contracts, etc., it seems that the I has all the powers, the I that has no form, is not focused in any sort of choosing between this or that, or any kind of duality, and so is not an I at all. As soon as there's an I, it seems there's duality in mind. And the human system does not seem to naturally flow into just deciding to rescind contracts, etc. Feels much more loving, compassionate, faithful, loving. Yeah, very much. Yes, very much so. The I is a concept, right? You don't need it. Children don't have a concept of I, right? But we have to acquire that concept of I for consciousness to truly mature to the point where it sees through the I. At first, we mistake the conditioning of our nervous system for I. We give it an I. And that I, of course, is rooted in the body. There's a conditioning, there's patterns. And so it centers onto the body and says, I am the body. So the concept I roots itself in the body, and therefore I become the body. Sense of identity now forms around the body. Right? The true I is the consciousness that has identified with it. And the awakening path is a disidentification with conditioning. And it actually even transcends I. Right? Is there a need for an I if there's not a you? If there is only one, does it refer to itself as I? Or does it just, is it just? There's no reference point at all. Everything is me. So it's not really even there's an everything. It is totally non-dual. And all I can do is do my best to do is point at it. I can't actually describe it. How do you describe one without a second to describe it by? So you point to your own experience of the non-dual reality, which you have every single moment of every single day. Every time you notice that there's something looking at every thought, looking at every face, looking at every experience, feeling every feeling, noticing every sensation, that which is looking at it does not have a form. And it's you. And it's you that is aware of it. You and that are one. I am that. At which point there's no I am. There's no am. There's nothing but am. So there's no opposite for there to be a not am. There's nothing other than I. So there's nothing that really needs to be an I. And that's the pure non-dual absolute state. So on that note, thank you, Janice. Thank you, Faith, for working energetic assumptions of this life. Perfect. Yes. Yes, indeed. Oh, thank you for stepping up. Faith, listening to Sexual Mosher Sue's GP is the bomb. Let's see. Chris, thank you. Thank you. Nice colors, G. Burgundy suits you well. Thanks, Jay. Thank you very much. Thanks, says Lydia. Thank you, G. Wonderful to sit. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, G. All right. Great, all of you. Great, great, great. I got to be able to take a little break or maybe refresh my tea before I have to get on to the next. And find out where I'm supposed to go. I don't have a link to go to yet. Anyway, I love you all. I will see you very soon. Namaste.